The person that I'm interviewing today has gone in the span of 2 years from a complete stranger to one of my closest friends. I first met Kerri Kuzbyt through a mutual friend of ours who asked me during a workout if his friend could come join us the next day. He explained she was a former player at the University of Winnipeg and that she was going to go to Germany to play her first season of professional basketball. And I said, obviously, let's have her in here. So Kerri arrives to the workout, and well, to say that I wasn't impressed may sound harsh, but it was the truth. She had been a 5 year guard at the University of Winnipeg, and when we did our first initial floater warm up, she did two floaters and then proceeded to ask me if she could just do pull up jumpers because she didn't shoot floaters. And I looked at her as a small guard who was about to go play professional basketball and thought to myself, how is she going to play professional basketball if she can't shoot a floater at her size? Well, we worked on it. And when I say we, I mean with her maniacal focus, she began shooting floaters not just with her right hand, but probably equally as good with her left hand off of both feet. She learned to finish on both sides of the rim with both hands. The way she moved with the basketball improved to the point where I gave her the comment that she was starting to move like a guy, which she took as a great compliment. In this conversation, we talk about those humble beginnings, what her experience has been like overseas, and where she hopes to see the women's game go in the future. Here is a conversation with Kerri Kuzbyt. I am now joined with a player who I think is probably the first player that I know is more stubborn than I am when it comes to getting in the gym. Kerri Kuzbyt. Kerri, how are you?
I'm good. Yourself, Matt?
I'm doing fantastic. And the first thing I wanted to ask you about, because we were just chatting a little bit before we came on in the interview, was kind of where does this stubbornness, where does this drive, this holding yourself accountable, where did that come from? Because that's something actually I don't even know about you, I don't think.
I honestly think it comes from growing up with my brother. My brother is 6 years older than me, and I was always, I played with the boys in every sport, including basketball until age 14. So being around the guys a lot and trying to like kind of hold my ground or just, be that tough person, especially around my brother, it always made me want to, beat them and just like, I don't want them to win and everything. So I always hated when ever take it easy on me. And it just kind of always pushed me. It pushed me to be like, oh, I don't want to feel this again. And so honestly, if I really think, it came down to growing up with my brother and just always playing around the guys.
And now you transition to that, and I know this is one of your favorite aspects of our off seasons has been the opportunity to work out with some of the guys. What's that been like these last couple off seasons?
It's been, some days it's been frustrating, because they challenge you. They just, when you get beat at a play or something that you could do better in, it just fuels me to be like, oh, I want to get that next one. I want to redo it. I want to get that next better rep. And so for them always like beating my ass and all that, I just keep thinking and I couldn't tell you the amount of drive home I had with, like, after I left the gym with you late nights, and I was just hitting the steering wheel. I'm like, oh, and then I would say to myself, oh, it's moments like these I'll look back and I'll say, yep, this was the moment. This was the moment that made me better. Like, it only gets better, but frick, like, and I would just wail on it, and then I would just be like, oh, okay, yeah, you have to start. I honestly think you always have to fail in order to be successful. So I embrace it. It took me a while to kind of just, give myself up to that mentality of like, okay, like, I welcome failure, like, let's go. And it's crazy when you kind of, the mentality, and when you tell yourself that, how much, less resistance, less harder it is, and the less failure, honestly, you actually, receive or feel. Because, hey, what's the worst that could happen? You just get better. Okay, let's run it back. So I loved when the guys just didn't take it easy on me. And then my little competitive like flow was like, yo man, I want to get this guy next one. Like I want to get him. So.
And what I love, and this is like, I'd always start telling the guys this, because oftentimes you work out with like my high school guys.
Yeah.
So I would tell my high school guys, like, one, no taking it easy on Kerri. And this included like guys that are just way physically like more just more physical than you, right? This could be like Simon playing against you. And I would say like, no, first of all, no one takes it easy on her. If you do, you have to leave my gym. Two, the second reason for it is that if you take it easy on her, she will embarrass you from time to time. That was something that I appreciated. It was also just like the humbleness that you had to kind of get in the trenches with like my high school guys, huge age gap, and you set an example for them that you weren't below anything that was going on. So appreciate that.
No, I appreciate you even giving me the opportunity, because to kind of show them a bit and just kind of, this is where you could be, whether you're male or female, and just, like keep your head down and keep working hard. Like if I could have given them to learn that, oh, that's all I wanted. So it kind of went both ways.
Going back to you slamming your hand on the steering wheel repeatedly, do you have any any things that you do now as you've matured to calm yourself down from those states?
Yeah, I do. I really got into, within like the 4 years from like finishing CIS, my 5 years, and then to where I got to playing overseas for the year and a half. So the 4 total, essentially, I really developed and took on the challenge of increasing like my mindfulness, different techniques, whether it's breathing. The biggest thing I have is just my inner dialogue, the language that I could now speak to myself, recognize it, is something that it was never where it was before. But to give myself, take a breath, the recognition, appreciation, and gratitude are the 3 things I constantly kind of remind myself. Give credit for myself for where I am now, and essentially where I still need to be, but at the same time, not lose sight of all that I did. Don't discredit it. I've earned the right to credit myself, not to be content with it, but we still have to recognize, hey, you're still doing a good job. It's still that 1% better today. And then we just go again tomorrow. It's not going to be leaps and bounds. It's going to be small. It's going to be little by little. But I always have to remind myself, hey, don't discredit all that where I am now, essentially. So
if you can take yourself back to, I guess now it's 2.5 years ago, first couple of sessions that we worked together, what was your thought process leaving the gym after those first couple?
My first was, shit, like I'm not that good. like I am a good player. I'm going, and anybody who knows me, I'm not like, this cocky, all that, but like, I will acknowledge, like, hey, I've worked hard for where I'm at. Like I am a good player. But when I left, I'm like, oh, I could be so much greater. That was my first instinct, seeing all of the things in front of me. And you only showed me 2 different moves that day.
I think so.
But to then just see like a new world, I'm like, oh, I got a lot of work to do. That was my instinct. It was kind of scary. It was very I don't know. It made me realize I could just be so much better. And that I craved that. And then I kept coming back. So
yeah, because if I'm if I'm being perfectly honest, I kind of had the same thought about you after the first session or two. I'm like, she's clearly good, but like she's really not that good. But
Yeah, I would agree with you.
what impressed me though, like right off the bat, was um the like you said it yourself, the craving to get better, the humbleness of your ability to be a student, and then the you really like you didn't want any shortcuts.
Yeah.
And what I can recall, I think it was the Christmas break after after you came back, like last Christmas break, and I'd done a few like high school sessions before that, and it was probably like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, and you came in, and I just said to you, I'm like, hey, I got nothing in the tank right now. And you're like, okay, I'll just do the same thing we did like yesterday. And for like 45 minutes, you put yourself through a workout where I just sat on the baseline and it was like yes or no. And that showed me, I was like, okay, that's what professionalism is about. I don't know if you remember that at all, but that's something I
do.
I've grown to appreciate, and it's something that kids everywhere could learn from, I think.
Mm-hmm. If there's one thing I always, and still to this day, waking up every day, there's always one thing that I say to myself, and I always say, there is no one that is going to outwork me today. That's one thing, and that's something I've said to my students, and that I will say to my students when I enter like my teaching career. But anything like just being a teammate, and there was just that drive of like, no one's going to outwork me. That's one thing I could always control. I can't control if the ball isn't going in that day. I can't control if they're more talented in this area of the game, or if they're a bit better than me. I can't control that. But what I can control is how hard I work. And each day I grew to kind of just, I think it was just my personality in a sense, where I enjoy the process, like the process of getting in with you and feeling better, and just like the cliche, the grind. I loved the grind. I love the process. I still do. And it's in the games, or that one rep in live one-on-one where like I pulled it out. And it's just like, that is why I do what I do. That is why I go day in, day out, kind of just going through the hard times, hitting the steering wheel. It's for like that one rep or that one time in a game. It's just, it makes it all worth it. And it makes me want to go back and do it again, because I want to feel that again. So I remember that day so clearly. And that's kind of like, in a sense, especially when I was coming back home in between at the halfway point overseas, and just getting like, just being around you, having that input, because I couldn't have you out there. It could have been anything. And it's me wanting to do it again and again, so that when we're put into the next situation, or when you want to, ramp up, or, graduate to a different move, I have that basics first. But without the basics, man, I would just be lost. And then when I went back and I showed you a game, you said, hey, we worked on this at Christmas. You didn't have this before. And I pulled it out in a game, and I was like, oh, that feeling that was just like, oh, I want to do it again. And that's why I do it. So I think I just always had that work ethic, but it's just that, just feeling better personally, physically and mentally, and just like accomplishing that. Oh, I love the process. I think I actually love it more than like the final product. There is no real final product for me, but like, I love that process. I love that. So
how's your understanding, because you said that you needed the basics before you can move on. How did your understanding of what the basics were change over the last 2 years?
Redefining what basics is. Basics, like when I was growing up, or even around you, a basic is a left, right, up. It's this way, it's that way. It's basics now have just, kind of defined for me having the fundamental movement patterns that are the same, but then get transferred over in so many different ways, and that you could adapt them in so many different ways. So yes, you have the basics, but it's not the basic skill. I think it's the basic movements, because those movements could then be into a funky same foot, same leg. It could be then an off, but it's those basic movements, not just the basic skill in a sense, if that makes sense. But basics were completely redefined when I started working with you.
Yeah, the story I tell people is you can't. The very first drill we did was a floater warm up, and after you shot two floaters, and you're like, can I shoot a pull up jumper instead? I don't shoot floaters. And I thought to myself, this girl is going to go play overseas as an undersized guard, and is telling me right now she doesn't shoot floaters. Like, this is a problem.
And you know what, going back to like thinking like when I left this session, holy geez, like I'm not as good as what I thought I was. I remember like when I pulled that out, when I asked you, I was like, I'm going to impress him with my decision making skills. Like, yo, the player's coming out. Oh, I'll get the jumper. I won't be stupid and go for a layup. And me down, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess I got stuff to learn.
One of the shifts and one of the breakthroughs we had this off season was our 4-letter motto of how is it?
STFB.
What did that do in terms of flipping the switch for you?
It made things so much more easy. It wasn't overthinking. It wasn't predetermining, which is one thing that you told me and taught me. Like, if you predetermine something, like you're dead. Like you have to just be good and confident in all the scenarios that you put us through, so that when it comes to that time, it's just natural. It's that reaction. It's not, oh, I'm waiting for them to do this, I got to do this. So when you told me that and said just have like that Steph Curry mentality, like I remember and I still have it written down, like this was the day that like, yo, it changed. Like we leveled up, and it just and we never regressed, or I never felt I regressed. I kind of went to that next stage, and I'm like, whoa. So it just made things so much more slower and more simpler for me, because I remember like just shooting, and then when it wasn't, and then it was that easy now funky finish, it was like, yeah, it's, man, I'm killing myself. Just that it just made things just so much more simple and slower. That's what it was. It was literally changing, game changer. So.
Yeah, so the story behind the acronym was Kerri's playing one-on-one with a couple of girls from U of W, and she's just banging her head against the wall trying to get to the rim. And Kerri's a good shooter, and she's just not shooting the basketball. Literally. So finally, I just like yell, and pretty loud, probably. I was just like, Kerri, just shoot the fucking ball. And that kind of became a motto for the rest of the summer. And prior to her,
and that I carried overseas with me.
Exactly. When before her first game, that was the only thing I said to her, or I just sent her 4 letters in terms of before the first game. So my last question.
I still have that in my notes too.
my last question, and maybe more just kind of a broad last topic of conversation, is I know personally for myself, my appreciation for the female game has gone up tremendously since we've worked together, because I went from very stereotypical basketball fan of like, oh, girls basketball, this is brutal, this is terrible, I don't want to do anything but watch this, to now appreciating and striving to be part of, I guess, the solution. Where do you hope to see kind of the women's game in the future, or what what impact do you want to continue to have with it?
I want to kind of impact in the way that you've been starting to essentially, and just kind of teach them that whatever kind of skill set or what the males are doing, we could implement that into our game. And we have the same, we require a bit more technical, and very fine tuning, because we lack that natural athleticism that guys have. But to do the things that the guys could do, whether it's a different funky finish, whether it's different ball handling moves, creating one-on-one, this basketball is basketball. And so if we could apply the same things that the guys are doing in that game, the same game we share as females, I want them to realize that. And I think that's one thing that's lacking. People would have that old mentality you had of like, okay, the guys' game's like this, the girls' game's like this. And I could agree with you on that. But even myself watching more of like the WNBA, or even the film study you gave me to watch and the breakdown, I see so much of it in the guys' game. And the guys see so much of it now in the girls' game. It's almost night and day. You really can't tell.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing is that basketball is the same played by males and females, and we could do the same things that they're doing. Yeah, it's not going to be as athletic, or there's not some moves, but the technical aspect behind it, and the skills, and the different types of packages and shots, we could do too. So if I could get them to realize that, and then start to work on it at an earlier age than what I did, it would be, evolving essentially.
Yeah, like I think especially south of the border, they've done a great job
Yes.
of bridging that gap between the two games. You look at the high school
Yeah.
players that are coming out, the young players in the WNBA, like you can't really tell a difference. And I look forward to working with you in the future to kind of bridge that gap
Yes.
to our city.
Love that. I love that, and I wait for that to happen.
Well, we're at about the 20-minute mark that I like to get to wrap these things up. Kerri, appreciate you coming on.
Appreciate you having me.
And I look forward to when we can get back in the gym and get back working.
Hell yeah, and I'll make sure that you just shoot the ball in your head.
Yeah, I have to take my own advice sometimes.